Joy of Life Chapter 2, The Nameless Yellow Book. Perhaps the only benefit of being reborn was the newfound physical agility that allowed Xian to leap and play with joy. This realization brought him immense comfort, and he believed that those who had not experienced his illness could hardly fathom the happiness he now felt. He consoled himself by thinking that this might be a gift from the heavens. It took him a full 4 years to come to terms with this question. Since he had been given a second chance at life, why not live it to the fullest? If the heavens had granted him a fresh start, would he not be disrespecting them if he didn't make the most of it? For instance, now that he could move, why not move around more? So, the servants in the entire Count's mansion knew that this illegitimate young master was an energetic character who couldn't sit still. "Young master, please, come down quickly." At this moment, Xian was sitting at the highest point of the garden's artificial mountain, gazing at the distant horizon with a smile. However, in the eyes of the maidservant, a 4-year-old child had climbed to such a high place and was wearing such a mature smile. Clearly, the little fellow had gone mad. Gradually, more and more people gathered at the base of the artificial mountain, with 7 or 8 servants anxiously surrounding it. Count Xian, despite being favored by His Majesty the Emperor, held a relatively low noble title and a modest government position. His official income was not expected to be substantial, and even if it were, it couldn't all be allocated to his mother and his illegitimate child. Therefore, there weren't too many servants in the Count's mansion. Xian, looking at the anxious expressions of those gathered at the base of the artificial mountain, couldn't help but sigh. He climbed down obediently and said, "I was just getting some exercise, no need to hurry." The servants were accustomed to their young master's peculiar habit of speaking like an adult, so they didn't find it strange. One of them carried him away for a bath. When Xian emerged, freshly bathed with rosy cheeks, the maidservant picked him up again and playfully patted his cheek. She teased, "Young master, you look like a little lady. I wonder which young lady will be lucky to enjoy your company in the future." Xian, acting a bit foolishly, didn't respond. He wasn't about to engage in inappropriate banter with a teenage maidservant using the mouth of a 4-year-old. Such behavior was beneath him. He thought to himself that he would embark on that great and challenging endeavor when he turned 6. "It's time for your afternoon nap, little master," the maidservant said, giving his bottom a gentle pat. They found it rather odd that the young master, despite his mischievous tendencies, had maintained a certain level of adult-like discipline and diligence in certain aspects, such as taking afternoon naps. Those who had experienced a normal childhood always remembered how, in the bright midday sunlight, they had valiantly battled the great demons who insisted on making them take afternoon naps. These demons sometimes bore the names Daddy or Mommy, and sometimes they were called Teacher. But young Master Xian was never one to be coerced into taking afternoon naps. When noon struck, he would put on the most adorable and innocent smile, obediently return to his bedroom, and start sleeping. During his nap, he wouldn't make a single sound. At first, the old lady didn't believe it. She had the maidservants keep an eye on the little fellow, thinking he might be misbehaving in bed under the pretext of sleeping. However, after monitoring him for almost half a year, they realized that the child was genuinely fast asleep every time, and even shouting couldn't wake him up. Since then, the maidservants no longer paid much attention to this matter. When he was asleep, they would usually be outside guarding. It was summer now, and the maidservants were naturally exhausted. They lounged with their bodies slanted, lazily waving small silk fans back and forth, occasionally catching the flickering fireflies in the breeze. Back in his bedroom, Xian climbed onto the bed, lifted the sheets covering it, and carefully retrieved a book from a hidden compartment beneath. The book's cover was slightly yellowed, showing its age, and it bore no title or words. However, there were some decorative patterns along the edges that had an indeterminate meaning. Each stroke of these patterns curved gracefully, resembling flowing clouds and exuding an ancient charm. He gently opened the book and turned to the 7th page. On it was a depiction of a naked man, with faint red lines crisscrossing his body. These lines seemed to be painted with an unknown substance, and they gave viewers a visual illusion as if they were slowly flowing in a particular direction. Xian sighed. His outward appearance was that of a 4-year-old, so he dared not reveal his true nature. Thankfully, he had this book to pass the time when boredom became unbearable. This book had been left to him by a blind teenager named Wuzhu when he was very young. Fan Xian always remembered that blind youth, who had been a servant in his mother's household in this world. Back when he was trapped in the body of an infant, he had spent time in the arms of that youth. They had traveled together from Kyoto to this coastal port. Perhaps the blind teenager thought that he was too young to remember anything. However, Fan Xian's soul was not that of an ignorant baby. During their journey, he could sense that the blind teenager's care for the infant was genuine and heartfelt, without any pretense. For some reason, though, the blind teenager had left him behind at the Count of Sinan's mansion and departed, despite the old lady's efforts to persuade him to stay. Before leaving, he had placed this book beside the infant's body. Fan Xian had always been somewhat puzzled by this matter. Wasn't this servant afraid that he might accidentally practice the techniques from the book? But then he realized the reason. He was just a child and couldn't possibly recognize the characters in the book, so there was no fear of him practicing it incorrectly. However, Fan Xian happened to know the characters of this world, and after his rebirth, he had become convinced of the existence of ghosts and immortals. He was even more certain that this book, which looked like a prop from a Hong Kong television drama, was a manual for cultivating some kind of true energy. It was unfortunate that the book had no title. Otherwise, he could have asked the children in the street about it and found out how powerful this martial art technique was. Thinking about it, Fan Xian chuckled foolishly. Since fate had given him a second chance at life, he needed to cherish it. Internal martial arts were something he didn't have in his previous world. Even if this nameless technique wasn't particularly powerful, he couldn't resist starting to practice it from the age of 1. Keep in mind that this was even earlier than those who started practicing martial arts in the womb. What did they call this? It was the early bird catching the worm, the not-so-smart bird flying first. Moreover, was he really dumber than those young beginners in the world of martial arts? As Fan Xian contemplated, he began to feel the flow of true energy following the patterns depicted in the book, coursing through his body. It was an incredibly pleasant sensation, as if a warm stream of water was washing every inch of his internal organs. Gradually, he entered a meditative state and peacefully drifted off to sleep on his bed.